Hello and welcome back to the Yorkshire Bike Mechanics YouTube channel. My name's Dave K and I hope you're all well. If you remember a couple of weeks back we had this lovely YT e-bike in. He brought it in because it was showing error codes, EO50 if you remember. I put a link to the video up there so you can go back and have a look and see what we actually did. We couldn't find anything massively wrong with this apart from the software suggested that it needed a firmware update to the motor, which we did. So we asked the customer to take it back, ride it and see if that solved the problem. It seems as though that has actually done the trick, and he's not had that error code since, so we're keeping his fingers crossed, and that's the end of that one. So the reason why I'm going to do this video today is a couple of weeks ago a subscriber sent me a comment saying that his e-bike creaked. He also said that he thought he knew where the creaking was coming from, and he suggested that how the battery fits into the frame is a potential area why the creaks occur. And I also mentioned that this could be a similar sort of problem in a lot of e-bikes, why they actually creak. Now a lot of customers' e-bikes, I'm not saying all e-bikes creak, they don't, but some do and some don't, but it made good sense in a way what he were actually saying. And looking a little bit closer, then potentially, you know, there is an area there which could cause creaks. Now a lot of e-bike riders have said, look, e-bikes creak, just get on with it, just get riding it. What's so weird? It's a bike, it's going to creak, you know what I mean? So, but some people obviously don't like any noise from their e-bike at all. So what I thought we'd do is, well, when I fit these Shimano Saint brakes to this bike, I thought I'd investigate that idea what he'd mentioned to me. Now this video might not be up your street, if you like. It's a little bit geeky. So if it is, my apologies, then obviously skip on. But if you're a bit of a geeky idiot like me, then you'll be interested in what I'm going to show you. So let's look at creaking e-bikes. And he were writing saying, I won't say what bike he had, but he were writing saying, but I know that particular bike, how that battery fit in could potentially cause a creak. Now the battery, the bike that we were talking about, the battery actually slot into the frame at the bottom. It actually sat in like a plastic cradle at the bottom, and then the battery pushed up and clipped in there by a locking mechanism. So if you think about that, if you think how that battery fits in there, unless that battery is super tight in that frame, excuse me, and unless that locking mechanism is of super top quality and everything fits nice and tight, then potentially you've got an area where things could move inside there, whether it's over jumps or whether it's bouncing about, then you know it could creak. Now it's difficult for manufacturers because they've got to design a bike where you need to be able to take the battery out to either charge it or store it or for whatever reason replace it. So they need to design that bike around the battery to say how are we going to stop this battery moving around in its case, but still you know, maintain the structure, if you like, because this particular area here is just a box. It's an empty box. So what I thought I'd do is this particular bike, I'd show you how different the YT designers have installed this battery in this bike, which I can say will not creak, okay? Well, I'm going to say it's not going to creak. So this particular battery in here, there's no locking mechanism at all in this battery. It doesn't slide in from the bottom and it doesn't clip up from the top. What this battery does is it comes out completely straight out of the bike. And the reason why it does that is because it's got a big bolt going all the way through the top frame. You can probably see that. And then it's got a big bolt at the bottom as well. So these bolts go through like a battery carrier, if you like. I'll take it out in a second and show you. It goes through a battery carrier which when bolted into the frame forms part of the structure of the bike. Okay, so that actually will help this particular battery stay in its place. It's not going to move, and therefore you're going to reduce the chances of it creaking. I'll take these bolts out and I'll show you what I mean. I've undone them already, so I'll just slide them out. And I'll just drop this battery out there, look. So you can see the battery carrier here. This carrier has been designed to actually enable the battery to sit in via these bolts here. So it's forming the bike structure, and these bolts go straight through. One at the top and one at the bottom. So that's going to reduce the chances of this e-bike creaking. But what it also does is it also kind of adds strength to the down tube, which is also going to kind of reduce the risk of it creaking. Now, what I liked about this bike was how this area is designed as well, because you've also got some supports. Now I'll take the camera and drop it down and we'll have a look. So if you see here, on the bottom of the battery compartment is this brace here, which actually supports this bottom end and strengthens this up. All this is carbon fibre. And these bosses for the bolts are actually bonded into the frame. And we've got the same sort of carry-on at the top. But also what you'll notice of this particular bike is that YT have done it a little bit different, and they've not put any electrical connections at the bottom, which is quite common on a lot of e-bikes. Most of the connections are down there, so the battery slots into the holder, the power holder, which connects up to the motor. On this particular bike, they've actually connected it at the top end, which reduces the risk of water getting into the connections from the top. But also, what I wanted to point out was when we were doing these brakes, when we were adding these brakes on most e-bikes, you will need to drop the motor to feed the cables or the brake hoses through the motor, because nearly always all cables, hoses and wires excuse me, on e-bikes goes over the top of the motor. And they're doing this particular case. But if you notice on here, YT have been really kind to us mechanics, and they've put like a cage, like it's like a tube, if you like, and it's fastened onto the bike. This little cage here goes from the top over the motor, and it helps us feed the cables and the hoses through the frame without us dropping the motor, which is a brilliant idea because it makes working on this bike a lot easier than others that don't have this feature. So that's brilliant, YT. Thanks for that. It's a good idea. So let's look at the top end. So here you can see at the top end of the battery compartment, you've got the bosses here to take the bolt that goes through the battery, but also you can see there you've got the electrical connections, which is a brilliant idea having it at the top, because the chances are that of water getting in there are very, very little. So that there you can see the top end, and you can see the cables running down. How these are held in place is a brilliant thing, to be honest, because a lot of them are just tucked in and tucked away and hidden behind a battery. These are securely fastened in, again reducing the risk of any particular creaking. But from a mechanic's point of view, from a service point of view, this is a piece of cake to work on, because it makes our job a lot easier, having all this stuff rather than having to poke and fish and find wires through. And again, these cables that come in the top here, these entry cables, they also come with a little plastic rubber cover at the top, which also reduces the risk of water getting through in there as well, which is fantastic. I think that's a brilliant idea. It really is. By the way, this is not a sponsored video. I'm not sponsored by YT. So, but what I'm saying is, from a mechanic's point of view, this is a lovely bike to work on. It makes a really nice change. But going back to the original reason why we're doing this video, you can see by looking at the battery and how that fastens in and how this area has been designed. It's been designed not to creak. It's been designed not to move under stress. Because obviously this being an empty compartment, even when the battery's in, on some e-bikes, you've got movement there, and when you're bashing down the woods or anything like that, this area is going to flex, and because the battery's not bolted in or just sat in and clipped in at the top, you've got potential area for movement there, which is going to cause a creak. Now, don't get me wrong. There's loads of other reasons why bikes creak, not just e-bikes, but loads of different bikes. It could be the headset. It could be anything. We've spent hours and hours trying to solve creaks on bikes, and they've come from the weirdest places you would never imagine for a creak. So it's not just e-bikes that creak. I know it's a little bit geeky, but I hope you kind of get and understand how this particular compartment can make such a difference to the bike's strength and the rigidity and the creaks that you could potentially get from this area if it's not engineered or designed right. Okay, so I want to thank the subscriber that sent me that message that said the creak is from this area. So that were an inspiration to make this video, so thanks for that. I hope it's helped a lot of people understand what's going on in these particular areas. So toodle pip.